welcome to winemastery.co.uk. My name's John Lightford and this is...
Graham Barbour.
Graham is here, well, we're both here at his beautiful vineyard in a county called Kent in England, which is called the Garden of England, on a typical English autumnal day. And it is just towards the end of grape picking. So Graham's really busy. He's got a few grapes still to pull in and to harvest. So I'm not going to keep him too long. But before we actually get into the wine and the grapes that we have here in this vineyard, I'm just going to ask Graham a little bit about himself. And Graham, how did you actually get into winemaking? Presumably, you didn't grow up. A lot of people want to be train drivers and stuff. Presumably, you weren't at that sort of age thinking, I want to produce wine.
No, I wasn't born into it like some people in Europe are. Me and my wife had a real passion and interest in wine, as a lot of people do. We'd visited lots of vineyards, both here and abroad, as an interest. But the more we visited vineyards here in England, this was about 12, 13 years ago, the more we felt this was something that was potentially something we could do. It was a young industry, still is. There's lots of people coming into it that haven't got a huge, long background for many generations in wine. Likewise, lots of people coming into it that aren't super rich, like you might have to be in California or somewhere.
Yeah.
So it felt much more accessible to somebody like us. We went back to college, Plumpton College, down in Sussex, to do a viticulture course to see if it was something that we really thought we could do.
Yeah.
And after that, we started looking for land. I grew up in Kent, so it was always my idea to find somewhere in Kent to produce a product from Kent. Donna, my wife, is from Yorkshire. Too cold in Yorkshire at the moment, so we're not going back up to Yorkshire for grape growing. Although there are a couple of vineyards now in Yorkshire, so we could have done. But we spent many months looking for the right piece of land until we finally found this one right in the heart of Kent. And that's how we started.
Wow. So, and what sort of period was that over? Was that...
So 2009 we bought the land.
Yeah.
So we started looking, I guess, in about 2008.
Wow.
2008.
Okay. And what were you doing before that as a career?
I was working for a legal publishing company.
Oh,
so
really?
very different.
That is very different. Donna, was she?
She works for the same company. I worked for the same company. Yeah,
wow.
That's how we met. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! Right, so it is a little bit of a sort of sea change.
Oh, very different. Yeah. Very different.
I guess you're a lot fitter now than you were when you were sitting behind a desk.
Yes, a lot fitter. Less back problems. No more of a sedentary occupation. So I used to always suffer from back pain, from sitting at a desk for too long, but now none of that.
It's all sorted.
No,
fantastic.
Different types of pain.
Different headaches.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how did you go about deciding what vines you were going to grow? I mean, what pushed you to that?
So we very much felt that sparkling wine was the way to go for us. We were going into the industry because of people like Ridgeview and Nye Timber, who had paved the way in terms of international recognition for sparkling wine. So we felt that making sparkling wine on a regular basis would be the sensible thing to do. We also wanted to make still wine if and when. We planted Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier as the sparkling wine varieties, with the understanding that perhaps we might be able to make a still Pinot Noir and a still Chardonnay when we had really good years.
Yeah.
Since then, we've also planted some Bacchus.
Okay.
In fact, this year, 2019, is our first vintage for Bacchus, so we'll get a still wine, hopefully, from that every year. But the bulk of our production will remain as sparkling.
Well, 72% is in the UK sparkling wine,
right.
So I'm told. So you obviously, and I guess that's just because our climate here is the best for that sort of wine, I guess.
Yes, I mean for sparkling wine, you need a nice level of ripeness, but also a nice level of acidity.
Okay.
Still wine, you want a bit lower acidity, and so for grapes grape varieties like Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, which are naturally higher in acid than some of the other still wine varieties that we grow here, it's perfect for sparkling wine most years.
Okay.
Still wine, you need that level of acidity a little bit lower, which is why for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in particular, you need a slightly different climate.
Okay.
So this year is a good example. We've got some Pinot Noir we're going to keep for sparkling, for still and sparkling. We got the acidity low enough on a certain block for that. But Chardonnay, the acidity was really too high. We haven't even tried to make any still wine.
Right.
Chardonnay, but it's going to be a great year for sparkling. It's got a lovely level of acidity for that. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Fantastic, fantastic. One of the things that I've been told a couple of times by people is that actually you don't particularly want good fertile land. That you know, the more difficult it is for the grapes to get the nutrients, the better they taste. Is that? I mean, this looks like quite sort of fertile land to me.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you know, people talk about vines liking to struggle and that sort of thing. And certainly, if you're in sort of chalk and tricky, not so fertile land, they have to send their roots right down, which is good for the eventual grape and wine that comes from it. We're on clay here, so it is a fertile soil. We've had to put in some drainage to make sure that the roots do go right down, and that it doesn't get too boggy in the summer or particularly in the winter. We don't have to add nutrients very often. That's true, because if anything, our issue is too much vigor, not enough vigor.
Yeah.
But lots of vines are planted across the world on all different soils, and it just provides a bit of variety.
I was going to say, it just makes it different. Vive la différence.
Yeah, exactly.
To use that very famous English expression. So, in terms of the percentage you said is obviously most of it is sparkling wine, and you know the question I asked was rhetorical in terms of the earth, because I've tasted Elizabeth Rose Wise tasted your sparkling wine, and you know I know it's absolutely delicious. So
thank you.
It's no need to say thank you. It's just a statement of truth. So, in terms of what year was it you actually started to plant, and then what year did you actually produce? I mean, what was the gap between that?
So we planted in 2010.
Yeah.
May the 5th, 2010.
You remember it well?
Yeah. The first vintage was 2012.
Okay.
But that's a very small crop. And then we released the very first wine in 2015, towards the end of 2015.
Okay.
But that, as I say, it was a very small amount of wine. And 2016 was when the 2013 vintage came on, which was a little bit bigger. So we were sort of making more, or producing more wine at that point. So really, it's a good 5-6 years before you've really got anything to show for it.
So did you have 2 jobs at that time?
I did, yeah.
It's like you can't just presumably plant and then say, oh, okay, I'm putting, you know, I'm still going to bring some money in.
No, I mean that's one of the good things about it being such a gradual process is that you can do, you know, fund it by keeping a job. We worked at weekends. There's not so much to do, obviously, when you're not producing any wine, or even producing any grapes for the first 2 years. There's less to do. Once you've got wine to sell, then you have to be available. You have to be working extremely hard to sell it.
Of course.
So that was the point where I gave up my job full time and was on the vineyard here. Sadly for Donna, she's still not able to work full time here. She still works part time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. She's got about 2 or 3 different jobs. Yeah.
Wow.
I've only got one.
Poor Donna. So you set up, and in terms of getting, you say that selling is really difficult because you know you've produced this wonderful wine. So now how do you get it out there? So I mean, how did you do that? Did you do that by social media? Did you ring up distributors? Or how did you actually decide to get out into the
guess there are three sort of main areas that we're looking to sell our wine through. One is local independent shops and restaurants. And that's very much sort of starting here in Woodchurch and working outwards, but concentrating in Kent, because that's obviously where we're from, and that's going to be a real sort of point of interest for local shops and restaurants. And that's my job. I do that. And then the second area is we do want the wine to be more available nationally, so we have found a distributor.
Okay.
And then the third area, which we've been working very hard on the last year, is getting people to come to the vineyard and selling it direct from the vineyard at the cellar door. And this building that we're standing in here is part of that project. We've only just put this up in the last year or so. This year has been the first year where we've properly invited visitors and had the shop open at weekends.
Okay.
Next year we want to do a lot more of that. So those are the three areas.
So in terms of, is it available on the website? You have a website? Is it available?
Yes, I sort of regard that as a cellar door, you know, direct to the consumer, as it were. Yes, so through the website, definitely. We do lots of social media.
Yeah, so I'll put the link down below in terms of people if you want to try this fantastic wine. And
the classic, our Classic Cuvee is available on Ocado as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well done,
You can get it through Ocado. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Is that going well?
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I said that we're just here sort of at grape picking time. So, how do you decide when to pick them? Because, is there sort of like a chemical test, or is it just the eye? Is it experience?
We've got you take. Well, there's a couple of different ways. The easiest way is you wait till we've got a 6-year-old daughter, and when she starts eating the grapes, then you know they're more or less ready.
Okay.
That's one way of doing it. The other way is you take a representative sample of berries from your different varieties, and then you test them for acidity and sugar levels.
Okay.
And you're looking, as I say, for a particular level of sugar and a particular level of acidity. As the sugar levels rise, the acid levels drop.
Yeah.
When you feel you've got the right balance, that's when you pick. In all honesty, in England, it's more holding out as long as you can. It's never really a question of just deciding, looking at the sugar level and saying, right, now's the time to pick. In an ideal world, it would be like that.
Yeah.
It's more looking at the weather, seeing how long you can hold out, seeing how much ripening you can get, depending on the weather. So this year, for instance, harvest time has been very wet harvest for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think it's really a question of holding on as long as they can so that there's no rot setting in the vineyard, and you get as much sugar or as little acidity as possible, and then picking when you can.
And does the dampness sort of promote the rot?
Yes, yeah. If it's in there, then the damp weather and humid weather and cool weather will exacerbate it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So then you have to get it going.
Yeah.
And that must be a phenomenal logistics problem in terms of, you're not just going to, one person's just not going to wander around the vine and just take it. You've got to get a lot of people in, presumably, at relatively short notice. And as you say, if you don't know exactly what day it's going to be, that must be really, really difficult.
It is quite a logistical exercise. Obviously, being relatively small, it makes it easier. But not having a winery on site means you don't have that flexibility that you might have if you were pressing all the grapes yourselves. So we have to arrange delivery, and we have to arrange with the winemaker when he's ready or she's ready to accept it, and all those sorts of things. So you can't. The bigger producers who have their own wineries, if it's raining or something, they can say, well, we're not going to pick today. When you're smaller, you've got less options.
Yeah.
You can't just cancel a pick because there's a little bit of rain.
No.
For instance, and you do have to sort of organise things very carefully. Yeah. We've got better at it, but certainly the first couple of years we were doing it. It was quite a tricky exercise. Yeah.
And I guess each year that sort of thing just gets that much easier because you've then got the contacts. You can bring in the same people.
Yes.
And top up, and so it's a matter of the years then as you get more, as more vines come to fruition, you're actually sort of topping up with people.
Exactly, and you get better at, say, predicting the yield. I mean, that's one of the key things for a producer like us, where we're sending grapes to different places.
Yeah.
You need to know, or you need to have a good idea of how much grapes you've got, how many grapes you've got out there.
Yeah, so you sort of like a flatbed come and arrive, and you've got 16 times that to load onto it. So how many, you mentioned sort of you're relatively small. How many acres or hectares?
We've got about 3.5 hectares.
Okay.
Here under vine.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a reasonable size, I think, for England.
It's small in terms of commercial vineyards.
Okay.
But when it's just me, my wife, and one other person working on it, it's quite a lot of vines to look after.
Is that other person your 6-year-old daughter?
No. So there's four of us, including her. Yeah.
And how many bottles do you get out of that?
Well, that's the other thing about English climate and English vineyards. There's a huge inconsistency in yield.
Okay.
And obviously, when you're smaller, that inconsistency is perhaps more difficult to cope with.
Yeah.
We actually have been, as we're growing, we've been subsidising some of our wine production costs by selling some grapes still. So we're not actually at full production. But if we were, last year, we would have, which was a fantastic year, we could have produced about 30,000 bottles.
Wow, really?
From our harvest last year. We didn't because we were selling some of the grapes, but that's the sort of at the very top end that we would get from here. Very top end. Yeah.
And what do you think this year's going to be?
This year's probably about 30 tons from these 3 hectares here. And I don't count the extra half because that's new. And it's not in full production yet. So we'd get about 30. So we're looking at about 10 tons per hectare here this year.
Fantastic. Well, perhaps the next thing, if you're okay with do, we could actually taste this, and you could just talk us through the flavours that are coming through on the wine. Is that okay?
Yeah,
fantastic.
with pleasure.
We'll catch you in a second. Okay, so glasses charged. What do we have here, Graham?
We have our Blanc de Blanc. Sparkling wine.
So Blanc de Blanc, what does that actually mean in terms?
So Blanc de Blanc means white wine from white grapes. White from white.
Okay.
And for sparkling, we grow Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier. Chardonnay is the only white grape of those 3. So it basically means, in this case, 100% Chardonnay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So sparkling wine, and how much does this retail at?
This is our the Blanc de Blanc usually is the most expensive of the range of sparkling because it usually is aged for longer. This is aged for an extra year. This will be aged for at least 3 years in bottle before release. It's made from the first juice that comes from the pressing of the Chardonnay grapes.
Okay.
So it's made from the finest juice. And we only make it varies, but up to about 2,000 bottles of this a year. So it's a relatively limited edition. So that's why it's $34.90. It's long answer. Short answer is $34.99.
Okay, so for the top of the range, that's very reasonable.
Yeah.
And just where we just sparked a question in my head there. Vintage. You know that some champagnes have there's normal, and then they have a vintage. What is that? And do you do that yourselves? Or?
So a vintage wine and a non-vintage wine. A vintage wine is wine made from the grapes of one specific year.
Okay.
So this is a vintage wine. This is 2014.
Okay.
That we're drinking.
Right.
With sparkling wine and champagne is where it sort of started off, and we are using the same sort of methods. If you want to make a non-vintage, you will mix together the wine from different years. You hold it back in tank.
Okay.
And then you'll blend it together
to get the right taste.
And then you'll have to get a consistent taste. So, but the idea is with non-vintage, no matter what year you drink the bottle of wine, it will taste the same because it's a blend of different years, and each year, by doing that, you can get a really consistent taste across.
Yeah. So when someone buys your label, they're not going to go, "Oh, this year's isn't as nice." It's going to have that same consistency.
And you can buy a bottle of Veuve Clicquot in Tokyo in 1990, and a bottle of the same Veuve Clicquot in London in 2019. It will taste just the same. You know exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah.
With us, with a vintage wine, it's going to be slightly different each year. That's the point of it.
Yeah.
We are going to make the best wine and the most appropriate wine we can for that particular vintage, that particular set of grapes.
Okay.
So when we're blending, for instance, our classic Cuvee, we don't have a set blend each year. We have a style that we're looking to replicate each year, but we'll make it slightly different each year, depending on the grapes and depending on what seems to work best for that year.
Yeah.
Blanc de Blanc is a bit more straightforward because it is 100% Chardonnay.
Yeah.
But the 2014 will taste different from a 2013 or 2012.
Right. But presumably not. You're not talking massive gaps in taste. Just subtle. I mean, would a beginner know?
Well, it's interesting. So in a couple of weeks, we're doing what we call a vertical tasting here at the vineyard. It's one of our first sort of wine tasting events in the new building. And a vertical tasting is where you taste the same wine but through different years.
Okay.
And we're going to use the Blanc de Blanc. So we're going to taste we've done 3 vintages now, 2012, 2013 and 2014. So we'll taste them all next to each other, and you will notice the difference. Everyone will notice the difference.
Okay.
Partly because of the aging process.
Yeah.
As you age the bottle, it will have an effect on the taste of the wine.
Yeah.
And partly because there's a difference in grape for that year. Yeah.
I guess for the commercial, the larger companies though, presumably they're getting their grapes in more than one vineyard, sort of feeding into them.
Yeah.
So I guess for them, consistency is much more difficult, whereas you've actually, you're controlling everything in the
exactly.
wine.
I mean, for a big producer, certainly in Champagne and definitely in England too, it's all about the brand and the consistency of the brand and the drink that you get from those bottles.
Yeah.
So they're looking for that consistency across the board. For us, we're much more about single vineyard. All the wine that we produce comes only from the grapes from our vineyard. So we will get differences in the years, and that's okay. That's what makes our wine more interesting. Just different from a bigger producer.
Well, I think it will be more interesting to some people. It may not be to others, but it's down to the personal taste.
You can say that.
Yeah, okay. I've just said it. Okay, so shall we have a little...
Let's have a taste. Yeah.
So that smells to me like champagne.
Yeah, well, it's a Blanc de Blanc. You're getting lovely sort of citrusy, lemony, citrusy notes there. It's very fresh still, even though this is 2014, like I say, so it's had 3 years in bottle.
Yeah.
So you're getting some of those biscuity notes, but with English wine, it stays fresh and fruity even after that time. So there's lots of fresh fruit flavours coming through. And then it's sort of it's actually quite soft and creamy. Isn't it? The Chardonnay spends a little bit of time in oak before it goes in bottle, like 2 or 3 months in 2-year-old oak, which just sort of softens it and rounds it out a little bit.
It's very soft.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I was thinking to myself, well, when I taste it, it doesn't taste like champagne, because it's not. I guess like this normal wine, the mixture. So that was, and I was thinking, so it's Chardonnay. So is it going to taste? And it doesn't taste like Chardonnay. It's like really.
No, it's. I mean, I think there's a sort of hint, perhaps, of butteriness down there, but the whole process of making the wine makes it very different from drinking a straightforward still Chardonnay. You've got the bubbles, you've got the bottle aging, the lees aging, the flavours that you get from that. The longer you age it in bottle, the more the fruit flavours soften out and drop out, and the more these biscuity lees flavours come in. So you've got that having an effect. So it's not going to be. So you get people coming to the vineyard, they say, "Oh, I don't like Chardonnay." But then when they taste it, well, I like this.
It is completely different. And I think obviously it's not some of the Chardonnays people use are very sort of really rich, buttery, and a bit OTT. But this is the other thing I notice is with some sparkling wine and indeed champagne, certainly the lower price stuff, is you get that sort of like acidic feel, and that's not here at all, is it? It's just like nice and refreshing. And the other thing is that the palate after that is really fresh and it's got a good amount of length to it as well.
It has a good length, this one in particular. Yeah. And it's a nice balance length. It's really good in that respect.
Well, I know that John would say this is dangerous because it's too easy. It's too easy to drink. This would be one of those drinks if you were at a party and it was being poured out and someone was coming around topping it up. All of a sudden you'd be past the point before you realise, because it's delicious.
Well, thank you.
No, it's absolutely delicious. It's very, very nice indeed. Fantastic. Well, guys, I will be putting the link at the bottom there so you can take a look and order some for yourselves. Absolutely delicious. That's well done, sir. Well done, wine. Well done, Donna. Even though she's only doing it, got 3 other jobs to try and support. Okay, right. Well, we've got another one to taste, I believe. So we'll move on to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So glasses charged again, and what do we have here, Graham?
So this is our Chardonnay, our still Chardonnay from 2017. Mm-hmm. This is the first still wine that we've actually made.
Oh, is it?
Yes. So like I was saying earlier, waiting for the perfect conditions to make a still wine from the Chardonnay. And 2017, we felt that we had just the right conditions for that. Nice, lovely ripe grapes, nice low acidity for the block that we were keeping aside for still wine. And so this is our first effort. So it's very light, fresh. It's only 11.5% alcohol, so it's quite low in terms of a sort of Chardonnay. It's very different. We were talking about the Chardonnay flavours. Yeah. It's very different from, say, a big Australian or Californian Chardonnay that might be, say, 14% alcohol or more, and it's heavily oaked. This is not like that. It does, though, I think, have those Chardonnay flavours, but they're a little bit more subtle.
And is this oaked at all? Or?
It has, again, like the Blanc de Blanc, it has a couple of months, just literally a couple of months in 2-year-old oak, just to soften it out. I don't want people to really sort of smell or taste any oak there. It just gives it a little extra dimension and
just
a little
softness.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh wow, yeah, I get the Chardonnay. That's
so you're getting some of those sort of stone fruit aromas as well coming through. Again, lovely fresh fruit flavours, or aromas I should say.
And would you recommend this is sorry, catch you mid tasting there? That this is served chilled?
Well, I like to serve this just a little warmer than chilled.
Okay.
I don't know what the technical term is.
A little bit warmer to do fine. Everyone knows what that means. So
I find that if you take it out of the fridge a good half hour before you serve this, and let it get a little bit of oxygen too. Definitely, if you're going to open the bottle, leave that. Do that,
Really, does that?
I definitely, with this one in particular, because it sort of opens it out. Those flavours, when it's a little bit warmer and it's had a bit more air to it, those flavours, particularly the Chardonnay flavours, that batteriness comes through. You get a little hint of nuts or almonds, perhaps, which again comes through better when it's just a little bit warmer than chilled.
Okay.
I think it makes all the difference with this one in particular.
So, dummy question coming at you here. Yeah. Does that mean if you didn't have half an hour, would you consider decanting it, or? Well,
you could do. You certainly could do. I mean, people. You don't see people decanting white wine.
No.
But it would certainly benefit from it.
Yeah.
If you opened it straight away, it wouldn't hurt to decant it.
Okay.
Or you could just pour it and then swish around the glass a bit. But it does make a difference. It's had a year now in bottle as well, and that makes a big difference. So it's 2017, picked in October 2017, bottled July 2018. It's now had 14 months or so in bottle, and it's just coming into its own now. It's really made a difference that year. And it will age well as well. This will age for a few years. Yeah,
wow.
Definitely.
That was one of the sort of interesting wines in terms of, by that I mean, first of all, when I took it in my mouth, there was the sort of buttery taste and rounded, and then it went sort of that sort of disappeared, and it became lighter in taste and more refreshing, and then it went into sort of like a more citrus taste, and left the mouth feeling really, really refreshed. Just a slight taste of Chardonnay there, so that's really refreshing, and certainly, if you and a lot of people don't like Chardonnay because it's too buttery and sort of too strong in taste maybe, but this is subtle. It gives you a really, really fresh taste in your mouth. But you get that sort of nice buttery, but not too much. Just that nice hint of it. And I say I really love wines that you can just you sort of go through different phases of tasting, rather than just there's nothing wrong with that. Wine just has the one sort of solid taste, but it just makes it that much more interesting to hold it in there.
That's right.
Fantastic.
I thought I was the one that was supposed to sound like an expert.
Yeah, well,
you did a pretty good job there.
No, I don't really how do I describe? I was thinking, how do I describe Chardonnay?
Sounded pretty good to me.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, it's this John's training. Okay, well, we've got one more, and this one's a really exciting one because it's not actually available as we're filming. Probably by the time this is released, it will be available. Yeah. And I can always obviously update the below to make sure that I've got the link there to be able to get this. So
what are we going to taste next?
We are going to try our brand new Pinot Noir, still Pinot Noir, first red wine that we've made from 2018 last year.
Fantastic. Right, well, we're going to try in a second. So wow, here we have, as you can see, a bottle of Pinot Noir with no label on it, because actually the labels are still waiting. This is so new that no label. So, and I'm just interested in this top, Graham. What?
Yeah. So it's wax. It's a proper wax top. You melt the wax. I can't show you now because the top's
it's open.
But you dip it in the melted wax, and then you.
So just turn it upside down.
Turn it upside down.
Yeah.
Give it a little shake to get the nice edge there, and then you dip it in cold water to stop it dripping.
And so what made you go for that?
Well, it's just we're only making a few hundred bottles. Of each of the still wines. There's only 950 of those made.
Yeah.
So it just makes it a little bit more unique and handmade and just
more artisan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And people do like that.
Those little details. Yeah, it makes it different. It is. Yeah, it's all part of the enjoyment of the. Yeah. Wow, this colour! Before we get even to smelling, that colour is.
It's a great colour, isn't it?
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's nice and light, and almost, it's sort of to the edge. It's almost like rosé when it's sort of
It's rich and dark, but it's sort of light at the same time.
Yeah, just around the edge so you've not got sort of big volume there.
I mean, again, because it's English, it's going to be light. It's going to be the same sort of alcohol level as the Chardonnay, 11.5 or 11.8 or something. So light, fresh. This is from 2018, so even younger than the Chardonnay we've just tasted.
Okay.
Definitely a wine to be drunk young. This one isn't for aging. This is sort of a fresh, fruity style. So it's been in bottle for 4 or 5 months. We're going to release it for Christmas, just mid-November, end of November, for the Christmas market. But bags of lovely light colour and bags of.
Oh wow!
You can really get the Pinot Noir aroma on the nose there. It's just a really absolutely unmistakably Pinot Noir.
Yeah, and that's sort of like florist floor. I think it's sometimes described as, or sort of
vegetable.
But actually, it seems that can sometimes seem like a little bit heavy, but there's still it's got there, but it seems lighter somehow.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Fresher.
Yeah, fresh. I mean, it's super. That's the word that keeps coming to mind when I'm drinking it.
Yeah.
It is fresh. It's just got bags of flavour, and that flavour are those sort of typical Pinot Noir flavours, but just in a young, fresh, fruity,
vibrant way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. When you were saying light, I was preparing myself for the taste to be light, i.e. not to be very intense and to be weak in flavour. But it's not. It's the flavour is full on, but it's just that it's the freshness, as you say. That's really that's the word. You're right. It just keeps coming to mind. The flavour is just there. It is Pinot. You can. I say you can recognise it's Pinot Noir. You know, if someone put it on the table and blind tasting and said, "What is it?" I haven't got the skill to be able to say that. But now I know it's Pinot Noir. All the neurons are connected, and I can recognise it. I think
you would.
But that's not an expert certainly would. I'm just saying because I'm not. But the difference is I don't know. I actually prefer this to a normal, very common, a normal Pinot Noir.
Right.
I don't think the flavour's there, but the freshness is there. And I sometimes with Pinot Noir just don't like that. I'm going to describe it as a dirty bit of the taste. Just that.
Well, there's a weightiness about it.
Yeah.
You know, certainly a Burgundy, a rich red Burgundy will have a weight about it that this doesn't have, and so it's a wine for a different occasion. From that, but like we were saying earlier, I think English wines, it should all be about the freshness and the fruit flavours that you get from it. It's a cool climate here. We're not going to be making these big, heavy, weighty wines in normal years at least, and certainly not for a few years. maybe in the future we might. So we should make the wine that's most appropriate for the fruit that we get, and drink it at the most appropriate time. And this is a good example of that. You know, make it fresh, make it fruity, drink it young, and it's perfect for those circumstances.
Another dummy question coming at you. Would you so if you were drinking this in the summer, would you consider slightly chilling this?
Definitely, definitely. It's one of those wines that, and we're drinking it perhaps to the same temperature more or less than the Chardonnay, isn't it, that we just tasted? Yeah. And it's just right, isn't it? I would say.
It makes a fantastic summer red wine, you know.
Yes, you might maybe keep this store it at room temperature and pop it in the fridge for 20 minutes before you serve it. That type
just
of thing.
To take the a slight chill,
And it just brings out their freshness, and brings out some of those flavours.
That is delicious, sir. Well done, guys. Whoa, that is really, really delicious. Fantastic, great stuff. Well, I think obviously you have. How many wines do you have altogether on the?
Well, with the Pinot, we've got 5 wines now. 3 sparkling and the still Chardonnay, and then there's still Pinot Noir.
And the three sparkling are the Blanc de Blanc, which we just tasted.
We've got a Classic Cuvee, a red, a pink rosé, and Blanc de Blanc. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, guys, as I say, the details will be below. When this Pinot Noir comes onto the market, which it will probably be around about the time that this video is being released, I strongly suggest you try and grab hold of the bottle.
This one will, because there's only 950 bottles made. This will only be quick. Well, it's only going to be available here. So either on the website or direct from the vineyard.
Okay. Well, you heard it here. Fantastic. Well, I'm really, really privileged to be one of the first to taste this. Thank you very much for that. It's been absolutely great visiting you. And even on this autumnal damp day, it is such a beautiful part of the country. So if you're ever in Kent, what are your opening times in terms?
We're open every weekend, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Next year, from about April onwards, we'll be open Thursday through to Sunday.
So that's in 2020, just in case you're watching this video in 2022 or something.
And other times by appointment. You know, if you look at the website, the phone number's on the website, you can make an appointment and come around other times.
Fantastic, great stuff. Well, sir, thank you very much indeed for your time. It's really appreciated. I know you've grapes to pick. So with that, we'll say chin chin.